The LA Times is triggered by MAGA hats and Trump victory celebrations in Beverly Hills. Caitlin Clark bends in half to appease the woke brigade. And if Justin Trudeau keeps running his mouth, he might not even get to be the governor of Canada. It's time for my losers of the week. The LA Times, New York Times, and Washington Post are constantly jockeying to be the worst of the worst media outlets, but this week, the LA Times wins by a nose. Behold this headline. Yes, the LA Times did a full expose on how triggered a couple of teachers at a Beverly Hills high school were to experience pro-Trump election victory celebrations. And now 2 teachers are planning to sue over it as a part of a larger complaint about the high school ignoring other incidents of racism.
On Election Day, a group of students with MAGA hats and a Trump flag roamed down the hallway of Beverly Hills High School.
I'm going to tell you how scary it was.
Teacher Bella Ivory says the group of students tried to enter her classroom where there were several black students.
Some of the students were shouting, Kamala, as they walked down the hallway. The profanity towards our vice president, who is part black, combined with students congregating in front of my classroom, increased my fears and also the students' fears who were locked inside that room with me.
Bella's attorney has filed a formal complaint with the Beverly Hills Unified School District. He plans on filing a lawsuit next.
Okay, so to be fair, these teachers are not only disgruntled and suing over the Trump victory celebrations, which is BS, but some of the students also had a couple of truly racist and unrelated incidents that they have lumped in this lawsuit or potential lawsuit with the pro-Trump flag waving and chants of F. Kamala. So let me be clear. The other incidents cited of racist writings in the restroom and the racist video put out by other students about black students eating in the cafeteria, those are egregious and they are sick actual examples of racism. But waving a Trump flag after the election does not rise to that characterization, and neither does shouting F. Kamala, even if those two things are perhaps inappropriate or in bad taste for students at a high school. So don't lump that in with the other actually racist things. I'd also add that it's just really rich for California educators to be up in arms about a Trump flag in the hallway, when for weeks, students in campuses across California, across LA, engaged in truly hateful, anti-Semitic, and pro-terrorist behavior. So please spare me the outrage. But speaking of bending to the woke mob, my next loser this week is Caitlin Clark, who, congrats to her, was named 2024 Athlete of the Year by Time magazine. Well deserved. However, that's where my congratulatory sentiment runs out, because in true weak, woke, and cowardly fashion, Clark just had to lament her white privilege as a white player in the WNBA, which apparently, and unbeknownst to me, was made by black women for black women, and the white women, well, they need to pay their privilege toll. It's really annoying to me that she would make this about race, especially when so many have been fighting on her behalf to take race out of the equation and focus on the game and the merit of athletics. So the woke mob can have her. Enjoy it. Enjoy Taylor Swift. Enjoy Jamel Hill. Don't expect the rest of us to defend you anymore. You're on your own. But speaking of no longer coddling people and even entire countries whose leaders don't respect us, my final loser this week is Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister and maybe future governor, if he's lucky, of Canada.
No, it shouldn't be that way. It wasn't supposed to be that way. We were supposed to be on a steady, if difficult sometimes, march towards progress. And yet, just a few weeks ago, the United States voted for a second time to not elect its first woman president. Everywhere, women's rights and women's progress is under attack, overtly and subtly. But I want you to know that I am, and always will be, a proud feminist. You will always have an ally in me and in my government.
Nobody doubts you're a feminist, Justin. But weird, Justin didn't have the balls to say all of that to Trump at Mar-a-Lago when he flew down there to beg for tariff freebies. But if he keeps this crap up, he might not even get to be the governor of our 51st state of Canada. Those are my losers of the week. Joining me now to talk about it all is conservative internet personality Clarkson Lawson. All right, Clarkson, I want to go over my losers of the week first, and then we'll move on to some other hot topics of the week. But I think I'm going to actually start with you with the Caitlin Clark stuff, because not only did she have that interview where she talked about her white privilege, blah, 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 but then she did another on camera interview where she said the same thing. The league was built on black women. She has to pay black women their dues. I personally am done defending Caitlin Clark. If she wants to be woke and she wants to bend the knee, if she wants to bend like a pretzel, I think she's on her own now. But I'm wondering how you feel about it, and maybe others in your age group. Are they hailing Caitlin Clark as a woke warrior, or are y'all sick of her just like I am?
I feel like she's like 4 years too late with this. This was something that you would do to appease the woke mob in 2020. But now, I mean, just looking at the election and the way culture's going, nobody cares if you're a white person who proudly proclaims that you hate yourself. In fact, it's actually pathetic. And most people are catching on to that, including people of color. So this is really nothing more than virtue signaling. And to think that you can do this in 2024 and the audience doesn't know exactly what you're doing, especially Black people, as if they don't think this is like infantilizing to them. It just blows my mind that she hasn't caught up with the times.
You're right on that point. I also think it's rather condescending. I think it's actually more egregious of her to sit there and say, I have to give credit to black women. Black women built this league. I think that that's really patronizing to the black women that are just playing. They're like, listen, we're playing like you're playing. We're all just playing here. We don't have to bring race into this. We don't have to bring any of that into this. Let's just play basketball. And we're finally getting attention for this league that still has to be subsidized by the NBA, by the way. But let's just do that. So I think that it's really preachy and it's really annoying. But I would also say, to your other point there, not only is she 4 years too late, I think that she and other people who attempt to do this, whether they do something and then they apologize for something they don't need to apologize for, or whether they just get out in front of it and already proclaim their white privilege, for me, I think that she's bending over backwards to be like, please like me. Please stop saying that I'm like a right-wing figure. Please, please like me and, allow me to be a part of this league. And I think anytime that you do that in the hopes that people are going to like you, I think you just make yourself look weak. And I think then the bullies just have license and a pass to bully you more. So I don't expect next season for Caitlin Clark to be any better. I think they're still going to shove her and push her. I still think they're going to antagonize her. But now I just quite frankly don't care.
Yeah, I mean, people like authenticity, and there's nothing more inauthentic than virtue signaling. And like I said before, people have caught on to that. So what she's doing is saying, everybody who is super woke, I really just want to be in your good graces. So please, 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 just like you said, like me. And that's exactly what she's doing. And it's like the American people know exactly what this is. We know what you're doing. We know this is a PR stunt at this point. We know it's not real. We know you don't actually feel this way. I know she worked very hard to get to where she is right now. And that's not due to Black women. That's due to her hard work. So for her to even insinuate that has anything to do with people of color is just a lie to gain attention.
Yeah, and it's also just annoying. And I also think,
that too.
I give it up to Caitlin Clark because I think that she did bring a lot of eyeballs to the WNBA. Are people going to continue to watch the WNBA, or was it just because she had her rookie season, people were excited about it? I don't know. That remains to be seen. I guess we'll see if people still want to watch it. I have a feeling maybe that they don't. But she was the Athlete of the Year for Time magazine. I'm actually much more excited about another pick for the Person of the Year, and that is Donald Trump. And, there was some, and we have the cover, the photo, which is a great photo, by the way. But I think that some people, they were trying to decide who they were going to pick. There was a list of people. Elon Musk was on there. Kamala was on there for some odd reason, the president of Mexico. Really, this belongs to Donald Trump. But I think it's crazy. There was a Trump cover of this magazine before the election that had him on a golf cart, and it was like he was losing his balance and, he was going over the cliff. He wasn't going to win the election, and now he's the Person of the Year. Do you think that the mainstream media is shocked that they had to give him this credit?
I don't think they're shocked. I mean, after election night, there's no way that you can be shocked about this. There's no way that it could have been given to anybody else. I mean, the man almost got assassinated. He had the comeback of the century. I mean, he not only won this time, but he won at a bigger margin than he did in 2016, especially after January 6th and 4 years of the media just hammering this guy. Even Joe Biden nonstop talking about him when he was the president. So for Trump to come back and win, there's really no question as to how he could be the most influential person not just in this country, but in the world. I mean, what America does, the rest of the world follows. So for him to be the leader of the free world, I don't see how they could have chosen anybody different.
Yeah, I mean, if they would have chosen Kamala, that would be really funny. I mean, that would have been like the ultimate DEI pick for a cover. She's not been able to really ascend to any elected position on her own, except in California, which that's a different land. How old were you, Clarkson, when Trump won in 2016, if you don't mind me asking?
I was 18 years old.
Okay.
So that was the first election I could vote.
So you were able to vote in that election. Were you a Trump supporter at that time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I voted for Trump in 2016. And you know what's funny? It was like in 2016, it wasn't that big of a deal. All of my friends knew. But then in 2020, that's when everybody started getting crazy. So it was just interesting to watch as my first election, the way culture shifted after he was president.
Yeah, and I think it's shifted even more now. I mean, I remember the election of 2016. I remember that it was actually dangerous to wear a MAGA hat. You're actually setting yourself up for physical violence. And in some places that might still be the case. But it feels now like it's much easier to be a Trump supporter for those that maybe weren't always confident in being a Trump supporter or a conservative. And I think that's also evidenced by this morning at the New York Stock Exchange when Trump is ringing the bell. And by all accounts, everybody was super excited, not just his friends and family that were there, but just people who were super excited. They're cheering USA. I mean, this is in New York City. Trump built, a lot of that town, by the way. But I want to play this clip. It just feels like a different energy. Let's take a look. So there's going to be people that are always going to hate Donald Trump, right? And most of them exist in the mainstream media and in the Democrat Party. But I just feel like overall, the country now, they're optimistic, even if they're unwilling to admit it, about Donald Trump. And I think people are actually really excited for him to be our president. I mean, the guy we have now, I don't know what he's doing, but I think people are just excited to actually know who's running the country. Do you think that come January, there's going to be even more excitement in this country for what Trump's going to do?
I think so. And, I don't think Joe Biden knows what he's doing either, to be fair. But I think people are more excited. And look, I'm not Trump's biggest fan. I don't identify as a Trump supporter just because I don't really like politicians in general. But I think that this Trump derangement syndrome that's been happening for the last 8 years has really gotten in the way of political discussions being productive. It's like you have a conversation with a far left Democrat, or even when people are having conversations on the mainstream media, all it is about Trump's character. It's never actually about policy proposals. So what I'm hoping is that, while yes, I hope that more people are excited about it, I hope that some of that derangement subsides so we can actually say, hey, this is a policy that Trump proposed. This is why I agree with it or disagree with it, because that's what's going to move this country forward. Just sitting here screaming, I hate Trump, has really stalled our progress for the last 8 years, I think.
Yeah, and I think even some Democrats are going to come around. I mean, today, New York City Mayor Eric Adams meeting with Tom Homan to discuss what they're going to do about their illegal immigrant problem. I mean, that's huge. And there's some that are, of course, defiant, but I think that the mood of the country has certainly changed. I want to ask you, too, because the other two big things of the week, of course, we've got the suspect that was captured in the shooting death of the UnitedHealthcare CEO. And it's been really weird online. I'm very perplexed and confused why some people are hailing this Luigi person to be a hero. I thought they hated white men from privileged backgrounds, but it turns out if a white privileged man from a privileged background ends up assassinating someone that they think they don't like but have never met, then all of a sudden he's a hero. But that also includes Elizabeth Warren, who just played the mental gymnastics on this next clip I'm about to show you from MSNBC with Joy Reid, where she's saying, oh, we condemn violence, but I get it. Let's take a look.
And look, we'll say it over and over. Violence is never the answer. This guy gets a trial who's allegedly killed the CEO of UnitedHealth. But you can only push people so far. And then they start to take matters into their own hands.
I don't know. That feels like incitement to violence to me, but maybe not. How are young people feeling about this? Do they look at this Luigi person as some kind of an icon, or do they think what he did is disgusting, or is it split?
I don't think it's split, unfortunately. And I've been on social media and I think I'm going crazy. I'm like, am I supposed to support murder at the, like, what am I not getting when it comes to this? And to add on to what Elizabeth is saying, just because I have to say it, for the last 4 years, Elizabeth Warren has been clutching her pearls at January 6th because citizens were unhappy with an institution, so they took it upon themselves to show up at the doorsteps of that institution. Now, I don't support January 6th, but this is blatant hypocrisy. It's the pot calling the kettle black. Violence gets, grace when it comes to an institution that she rallies against. This is exactly why people are frustrated with American politics. It's politicians not scanning their opinions for hypocrisy, projecting the things they're guilty of onto the other side. Nobody's being intellectually consistent. And, it's just frustrating to watch because, again, this isn't productive to moving the country forward. But when it comes to the alleged shooter, I've been, like you said, perplexed because I don't know what I'm missing because I don't want to support murder no matter who it is. So I'm very confused as to why the sentiment is positive surrounding this.
It's very odd. And there's even been some folks across mainstream media that have talked about how attractive they think this shooter is. It's just bizarre to me. I also want to ask you this because it's been something I've been confused about all week long in regards to this as well. When they apprehended him, he had the manifesto. We know a lot about what was in that manifesto, if not word for word what was in that manifesto. That seems real quick. Like, I'm glad. Thank you for being transparent with the American people about this person. But I'm still perplexed because we seemingly know more about him in the immediate hours after being apprehended than we do about the man who did kill one person and tried to assassinate a former president. And we still don't have the manifesto of the transgender who shot up a school right here where I am in Nashville. We don't have that manifesto that was left. And we know that there are like 10 notebooks full there. So in your mind, I don't expect you to know, but why do you think that in some cases we learn so much about somebody and in other cases we know so very little?
I genuinely don't know, but the conspiratorial side of me wants to say that it depends on the agenda behind the incident. And I think that anybody who has common sense can do that. But I hate to make definitive statements about it because, I don't know how investigations run. I don't know how. I'm not a police officer. I don't work for the FBI or whatever agency it is. But if you're just a regular American, just keeping up with the news, you're going to, look twice at this and be like, why? What is it about this guy? Is it just because he's good looking that we know more? Is pretty privilege that evident in our society? I don't think so, but it could be. But I'm definitely wondering as to why this has become such readily available information for us.
Yeah, it's very, very odd, the reaction. And then on the flip side of that, you've got the other big news of the week, which was Daniel Penny being acquitted, and as rightfully so, never should have been brought. But I've been talking about this all week, and I'm wondering your unique perspective on this. To me, I think that Daniel Penny perfectly embodies what it means to make America masculine again. And that's not just because he took matters into his own hands, but it's the way that he's been acting through the entire process. It's the way that he's acted in his post interview with Judge Jeanine, of course, on Fox Nation. He's not somebody who wants attention. He doesn't have a lot of bravado, machismo. He's just a good guy who wanted to do the right thing. He would do it again. He wants to protect people, but he also doesn't really want a lot of fame or shine or spotlight because of it. He just wants to live his life. I think that is the embodiment of true masculinity. And I'm wondering if young men such as yourself, is that going to be, somebody who maybe embodies that for your generation, or where do you think that's headed?
I hope so. I think that specifically my generation, Gen Z, is a little bit more open to conservative ideas. So they're more open to not listening to left-wing talking points when it comes to Daniel Penny. So I think that may be the case. I just find it so shocking that so many people are making this about race, kind of like that story that you brought up earlier in California. He was protecting a woman of color, and a black man helped him, with subduing Neely. So it's just, it blows my mind that it's gotten to this point. And I hope that he lives a very happy life. It is very clear that he was just doing the right thing, as he was a Marine veteran. So I hope that he gets the life that he deserves and that he can get it back on track and have a family or whatever he wants to do and gets to move on from this. Because it's really sad that Bragg used this as a career opportunity rather than actually looking out for the citizens of New York.
Yeah, and it might be a career-ending opportunity, really. I don't think people are too happy with Alvin Bragg. I mean, it's just one thing after the other, and then you're leaving actual New Yorkers, you're leaving them in peril because you refuse to actually get the real criminals and thugs off the streets. It's really bizarre to me. But I'm wondering, from your perspective, where are young people headed? I feel like there's a change, but I'm not necessarily super embedded in Gen Z. And I'm wondering, obviously, we've got an election of Donald Trump. You've got young men who swayed more towards Donald Trump, who are more proud of being Trump supporters, maybe likening themselves to a conservative or to have conservative values. I see that, but it felt like 4 years ago, it was dismal. And for the last 3 years, it really has been dismal in terms of young people feeling like maybe they were pro Hamas, not knowing which gender they were, that it was like the pronouns were at the forefront. And it just felt like woke was really taking over the younger generation. I'm wondering if that's still the case, or if you think there's going to be a big change in your generation and then even the younger one after you. Are we starting to see things return to normal?
I think we're seeing a pendulum swing. I wouldn't say that it's going to be entirely returned to normal, but I think the results of or the election results and the way that culture is shifting now is primarily due to Democrats abandoning common sense entirely. And you can only, in the words of Elizabeth Warren, you can only push people so far. You can only have them deny reality, but so much. So I think the question is going to be whether or not Democrats culturally are willing to condemn these far left lunatics and separate themselves from them. Because if they are, I don't think that we're going to see my generation move far right. I think they're going to just go back into the liberal graces. But if they don't, then it's just going to push people further and further to the right.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering if things got a little too weird for people. Like, I know that young people, just in general, not just your generation, but every generation, when they're young, they embrace things that are a little bit more bizarre. I mean, my generation had hair covering half their face, and it was like swinging their hair all day long, and the Justin Bieber thing, like that was a thing. We had goth kids, of course, that's been a thing. And I think in every generation you've got goth, you've got different iterations of what we might consider unconventional style behavior, right? But I'm wondering if it got a little too weird with your generation, and then people started to be like, yeah, I don't know, this is getting a little too bizarre for us. Do you think that you guys have reached that point to where you're like, yeah, maybe being normal isn't so bad?
Well, yeah, I think it has more to do with the culture of offense where everybody was offended over everything. Nobody could actually be themselves anymore. And I think we got tired of the morality police saying, oh my gosh, you didn't use my right pronoun. I'm actually changing my gender with the seasons. That type of stuff has turned everybody off. And it's like, yeah, it got weird, but it also just got frustrating because nobody was allowed to be human, not on social media, not in real life. Because if you said, the wrong word, it's offensive to this group of marginalized identities and vice versa. Everybody's worried about everything that's coming out of their mouths. There's no room for humanity anymore. So it's just natural that people are sick and tired of it, myself included. And I'm pretty weird. I'm open to a lot of things, but it's too much.
Yeah, it's just too much. And that's the thing. Everybody's going to be a little different, a little weird. Nothing wrong with that. It's just like, don't maybe go to an extreme. Like maybe don't identify as a cat and use a litter box. It started to get too weird for people. So I'm hoping that the younger generation is coming home. Everyone's going to have their quirks, but let's just hope that the younger generation is starting to maybe see through some of this. And there is hope there. Are people your age still wearing masks? Because I know that the young people had a really hard time on college campuses giving up the masks. Like they were just attached to them. Most of the people that I still see in airports and on airplanes wearing masks are people who I assume are under 30. Has your generation given that up yet, or are the masks still in vogue?
I live in Florida, so anybody who's wearing a mask usually gets like socially stared at, like, what are you doing? So I haven't seen that. The only time I see it is with baristas at Starbucks. And that's literally the only place that I've seen to wear a mask. So I think they're giving it up. But if I were to go to California, I might have a different stance on this, or I might have a different observation because you see people on TikTok still wearing masks, still, social distancing, but it seems to me that it's mostly people with mental illness. It's people who have social anxiety. They don't want to show their face, and they use their mask as a crutch. And rather than addressing this and saying, hey, you're actually, limiting your social interaction, and you're making your mental illness worse. People are just saying, oh, well, just let them do it. It's their choice. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess we'll let them. They have the freedom to make themselves in a worse mental state.
You know, I always say if you want to wear a mask, like if that's your thing, like go ahead and do it. But I do think there needs to be some kind of a crackdown, as we saw with the UnitedHealthcare assassin wearing a mask and being able to really get away for several days because they were wearing a mask. I mean, at some point, yes, it's people that are shy or people that want to wear a mask. They are still afraid of COVID, but it's also people who want to get away with crimes. So let's stop
Right.
with the masking and let's keep it for people who are immune compromised or elderly. And then let's have the young people breathe real air. I think that would be helpful for everyone involved. But I appreciate your perspective on the Gen Zers out there. I mean, it's a whole different animal. It's a generation that's kind of split in half between
Yeah.
super woke and then maybe going the other direction. It's a hybrid of the two. And, you know, how Gen Z is that? But thank you, as always, for joining me. Have a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you, and Happy Inauguration Day coming up in January to all of us.
Thanks, Tommy.
Thanks so much. All right, folks, that does it for this special episode of Tomi Lahren is Fearless. See you right back here tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern for my economic deep dive special with Trump's senior economic advisor, Steve Moore. If you want to know how much groceries are going to cost, gas, all of that, you got to watch the episode, have him explain tariffs to you. All good stuff. Please also like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. And don't forget, Christmas is right around the corner, so you can shop all of our Outkick merchandise by visiting shop.outkick.com and score 20% off with code HOLIDAY at checkout. From Nashville, God bless and take care. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.